Hello, friends. It's your Chapo for the week. It's me, Will, here. Going to kick things off with a very interesting interview. You might remember on our most recent episode, we ended with about a 10-15 minute retrospective on the career of Lyndon LaRouche. But I got to say, ever since we recorded that episode, we've been contacted by various sources who have sent us sort of missives and feelers about setting up this interview. It's an odd one. It's unexpected, but I'm pleased to say that we now have Lyndon LaRouche on the phone. Lyndon, are you there?
Indeed, we are here. Thank you for reaching out, of course. And we are tuned to the correct tuning for this interview, which is a tune of the note of A equals 432 hertz.
Lyndon, I got to say this is a bit odd for me because, we brought you up on the show because we thought you were dead. So, how are you alive?
This was addressed clearly in a memorandum to the president in 1977, a memo that was both telefaxed and also printed for backup copy, and it was distributed to President Reagan and members of the State Department. What we knew then, through our contacts, our intelligence contacts at the National Caucus of Labor Committees, is that the entire regime of the establishment on both sides of the Atlantic was a project of the British royal family, which itself is invested heavily in the propagation of a number of Reichstag fire events in order to distract from the necessity of the primacy of advancement of the physical economy. And this is clear. This is not only clear, this is clear and true. This is true, and this is clear. And we have evidence also that Henry Kissinger is homosexual.
Mr. LaRouche, though, it doesn't quite answer my question. It was widely reported in the media that you had passed away.
These are facts, of course. If you have a problem with that, then you have a problem with facts. Continue.
But Mr. LaRouche, though, why has it been reported that you died this week?
We are clearly looking at a Reichstag fire event. And this Reichstag fire event comes straight from Queen Elizabeth and her cohort, Prince Philip, who, of course, we all know are KGB assets going back to the Reichstag fire. And we know, of course, that Hitler himself, when he manipulated the events of the Reichstag fire of 1933, was acting in accordance with the KGB in order to set himself up as an asset for itself to be taken down, ultimately culminating in the Kabuki event of the Battle of Stalingrad. That's true. That's true, and I know it because I was active. I was active as a pacifist during World War II in that theater of conflict. So that to me, that's personal knowledge. That's the back of my hand. That's the garden and the bottom of my flower.
It's funny. In last week and in the same week that I suppose it was erroneously reported that you had passed away at the age of 97, it was also reported that California has finally scrapped their long planned plan to have high-speed rail in the Central Corridor of California. As a long-time proponent of high-speed rail, what do you make of that?
There is a media reporting the death of so-and-so, the figure within the New Federalist Schiller Institute, and so forth. And at the same time, concomitantly, as part of the same intelligence operation going back all the way to the KGB, which is still operative, on orders of Leonid Brezhnev, which have never been countermanded, orders to sabotage the very land bridge rail project that the high-speed rail project in California would have been an integral part of had we been able to steer it and sabotage it in certain ways. That is the kind of movement that will build a new Bretton Woods. And I know this because I have my economics background. I have a background in economics, and that's why I say new Bretton Woods is the way to reinvest in a physical economy while accelerating global warming, which is necessary to prevent the kind of major population reduction that the KGB, Henry Kissinger, Queen Elizabeth Texas would have on this planet, if it is in fact a planet.
The Snowpiercer global high-speed rail network taking a hit this week.
Snowpiercer was partly funded with funds from the National Caucus of Labor Committees. That was something that the LaRouche network was proud to get behind, and we invested heavily in that project to try to popularize a land bridge that would go at high speeds in a global cooling scenario, the opposite of what we are being told. A global cooling scenario. We invested as much as we could. We saw every matinee that was available in New Hampshire for the 2 weeks that it was in the movie theaters. That kind of investment is real physical economy. And that's the kind of investment, matinee tickets and early evening tickets, because obviously we have to go to bed at a certain time. But early evening tickets are very important when you're making a massive global investment from the LaRouche network into a counter-propaganda project as important, as vital to countering the KGB propaganda as Snowpiercer was. I will also point out to you that the movie Snowpiercer, due to our agitation and due to some of our funding and behind-the-scenes manipulation, was tuned correctly to the Verdi tuning of the 1840s. It is proper for the playing of all classical music, and also it is the proper tuning for any soundtrack in any motion picture. You'll notice my voice has been tuned to the original Giuseppe Verdi tuning, which is to say A equals 432 hertz. A demonstration. Allow me to demonstrate the Verdi scale for you, if you're not familiar. The notes become lower. So what would sound to someone propagandized by KGB musicology into saying that it was a flat note is actually the way that Giuseppe Verdi intended his music to sound. So the famous Brindisi drinking song from La Traviata is intended to sound like blah, 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 blah. That is the music. That is the melodious music of Giuseppe Verdi in the 1800s. Which in a pioneering documentary, which has yet to be released, we conclusively prove that Verdi, in what was known to us as the 1800s of the 19th century, actually took place in the 1700s or the 21st century. Well, it was all clearly laid out in a memorandum that I screamed over the White House gates to President Gerald Ford.
Well, Mr. LaRouche, I'm, again, still not quite sure whether you are alive, faked your own death, or coming to us from beyond the grave. Lyndon LaRouche, everybody. Thank you.